Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome, of course, back to the desk corner, and welcome to a new video. And you guys, today's video is a review video, which is really exciting because I don't do those all too often. If you've seen my art supply haul video I did after Christmas, you would know that I did buy the Staedtler Lumograph Graphite Pencils along with a lot of other supplies, and I wanted to do a little review for these for my first time trying them out. So I'm going to swatch them, talk a little bit about my first impressions, and do a demo art piece with them. And I'm really excited about these ones because I've heard a lot of good things about them. Currently, I use the Faber Castell 9000 graphite set for reference, and I do love those pencils, so I'm curious to see how I end up liking these ones. So let's go ahead and get straight into the review slash first impressions. As I start with the swatch chart, you'll notice right off the bat that these pencils go all the way to 12B. Most pencils go up to 8B, so this is a little bit of a surprise and something that I was looking forward to with trying these pencils. I bought them open stock because I tend to only use a couple different grades of pencils, so I bought the grades that I was most likely to use so they don't go to waste. I started with HB, and I would say that the HB through the 6B performed as expected for these pencils comparable to other sets. What I was really excited for was the higher grade pencils. I just wanted to see just how soft and dark and easy to blend that they got. So the 8B already looked pretty dark, and then as I inched up the scale here, you can see that the pencils are starting to get extremely dark for graphite pencils, which I just was a little bit confused about and also impressed with. I wasn't able to pick up the 10B, as you can see. They were out of stock, but let's just ignore that gap in the middle there, and you can see that the 12B is very dark in comparison to the 6B, which is right above it. I'm also going to compare these to the Faber Castell 9000 graphite pencils, which are the pencils I typically use when I use graphite. The 8B in the Faber Castell pencil range is a lot lighter than the 12B in the Staedtler Lumograph range, and these are not even including the Lumograph black pencils, which I'm going to review in a separate video. So I thought that this was pretty impressive, and you can just see as the swatch charts are sitting next to each other that there's a big difference there. Now I'd like to quickly look at the build of the pencil. So these are hexagon shaped like the Faber Castell so that they don't fall when you set them on a table. The barrel is a little bit thicker than the Faber Castell and a little bit heavier, but honestly pretty comparable to most graphite pencils. I think the Faber Castell are just noticeably smaller and lighter, and I'm just going to show you what they look like compared next to each other just for reference for those of you that already use the 9000 set. Now that we've gotten the basics out of the way, it's time to test out these pencils and see how they perform in comparison to a lot of other graphite pencils. Now, the thing about graphite is I never really like to use graphite on its own. I usually supplement my set with a carbon or a charcoal pencil to achieve those dark values, and I'm very big on contrast, so I don't like to create drawings that don't have a lot of contrast, and I get very bothered by the fact that graphite doesn't give you a high contrast result, so I always supplement my graphite sets. However, for the purpose of this video, I was only going to use the pencils that came in the set with high hopes that the 12B would be enough to add a good amount of contrast to my drawing, and I was pleasantly surprised because I went in right away and used the 12B for the eyes and the nose and some other very shadowed areas, and I was very impressed with how dark my value range was in this drawing and how I was able to achieve not a black, of course, area, but a near black. It isn't going to be as dark as a charcoal or carbon pencil just naturally, but it's able to achieve very dark value in comparison to an 8B pencil in a normal graphite set would. And I never like to use an 8B as my highest value pencil because for me it just isn't dark enough. I do like the consistency of the 12B pencil as well. It feels very soft and it covers areas very quickly. You can cover a large area fairly quickly. It almost feels like one of those jumbo pencils. You will be able to see me demonstrate that as I work on the left side here, just how quickly I'm able to go over and fill in my under layers here. You could see the grain of the paper underneath because this pencil is kind of bulky, not the barrel of the pencil itself, but just the lead, and you're able to cover large areas quickly, as I said before. And I started to wonder, what exactly is it about this pencil? Why am I able to get such dark value? How? And how am I able to cover large areas like this? I was a little bit confused. I thought maybe there was some carbon in it, but when I went to actually use it, the laydown was just so smooth, comparable to graphite, and I just thought that if it was carbon, it would feel a little bit rougher and harder to kind of glide over the paper, because that's typically how carbon is, and it didn't give off any debris or anything the way that charcoal does either. So I just really was not sure how I was able to achieve such dark results with this pencil. It wasn't squeaky. It didn't feel like there was anything else in there kind of laced in with the graphite. So I'm just not sure. It might be a magic pencil. You guys will just have to try it out yourselves and see what you think about it. Now I think that's enough about the 12B. I think I'm just going to talk a bit more about the set as a whole, and I do want to compare it more to the Faber Castell 9000 because I have mentioned before that that's pretty much the only graphite set that I've been using for the past probably couple of years. So the first thing I noticed that was a little bit different is that with this set, and not just the 12B, but with all the pencils, you can cover areas a bit faster than you can with the Faber Castell. Now, even though this depends on things like sharpening, I think that Faber Castell pencils in general have a predisposition to stay sharp longer and have a pointier kind of tip in all of their leads, including in the Polychromos set as well. They are very suitable for detail work, but sometimes it's harder to cover larger areas. But I didn't have that issue with the Staedtler set. I think that they are really soft and you can just cover areas very quickly, as I've said like 4 or 5 times at this point in this review. I just want to emphasize that. Not to say that Faber Castell isn't soft, they actually have a really nice smooth buttery laydown, but the pencil lead itself feels a bit harder, and that's just kind of how Faber Castell goes. These pencils didn't have any issues with being scratchy, except after I had used the 12B for a while, I noticed that there was a little bit of a scratchy bit in there that felt a bit brittle. And I'm talking about that little brittle area you get on like the side of a pencil sometimes. I'm not sure if it's going to sharpen away. I'm going to try to sharpen it off because I didn't have that issue for a long time until my pencil wore down a bit and I found that scratchy bit and it was squeaking a little bit, which was annoying me. So maybe this is evidence of something being laced in with the graphite. I don't know. I'm going to have to do my research on that. I just wanted to warn you guys that that did happen to me. It wasn't anything that caused me to not be able to use the pencil because it was only on one side of the pencil, but I still am worried about that, and I hope that I can sharpen that off because that's going to annoy me if it doesn't sharpen away. However, I think it might sharpen away since the top part of the pencil didn't have that issue until I wore it down a bit. I've never had any issue like that with the Faber Castell though, which is something I praise them for, is the leads on their pencils are hard, however never scratchy or brittle. Now around this time, I realized that I made a big mistake here. So there were a lot of fur details in my reference photo and I had forgot to use an embossing tool, or I have one of those tools that you can use before you lay down any of your graphite or colored pencil or whatever, and I was going to use that and I didn't remember to do that. Because of that, I wasn't able to pick up any of the graphite with an eraser when I went in and tried because of how many layers there are, and this just didn't erase, especially the areas with the 12B. They were not erasable in any sense, which gives me maybe the feeling that there is something in there with the graphite, or it could just be how many layers I built up. I ended up going in with a white gel pen, which I wasn't entirely happy with, and adding some very bright white details there, which wasn't the most realistic, but it was better than having no detail at all. So that's what my solution was for this issue, and this is how the drawing turned out. I'm just working on some of the details at the end there. So again, that was my fault, not the fault of the pencils for not being erasable, but do keep in mind that the 12B and probably the 11B as well are not very erasable. I think that's all I have to say about these pencils today, you guys. The overall verdict is that I really enjoyed using them. I was pleasantly surprised, and I will be using them again. I think I'll actually use them along with my Faber Castell pencils sometimes because I think that these two sets could complement each other very well, and the Faber Castell are great for lighter areas and detail areas, and these are great for darker areas and larger areas. So I'm definitely going to be using these a lot. I hope that you enjoyed today's review video and that you liked how this drawing turned out. I actually did like how it turned out despite the issue with the fur details, which wasn't my favorite way of adding fur highlights, but that's totally fine. At the end here, I'm just going to move my paper around so you can see if there's graphite shine, which there is a bit of it, but not as much as I thought that there would be. So that was pretty nice as well. I hope that you guys found this video enjoyable and helpful, and keep an eye out for that Mars Lumograph Black pencil review that I'm going to be doing as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching as always. Bye guys!